I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I put the mind to a limit where it needs to be. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns out with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's you lost, see. I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact.
I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed and
What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Sorry I've been kind of in and out of the YouTube thing for a little bit. I've been dealing with a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, getting things in the shop and getting everything organized. But today is the day. It's your guys' first day seeing this project, but I've been working on a little bit behind the scenes. It's probably just going to go a little bit different than what I thought I was going to film. I wanted to show every step of the way on this project. But the customer wants this to be a reveal. He doesn't want everybody to know about it until it's done. So he wants to be able to reveal it at a certain car show that he's going to this year. So a lot of the things are going to be secretive. But I think this video, I will show a little bit of what I'm doing now that won't give anything away for what the truck's going to look like down the road when I get done with it. And also there's going to be more things going to be done with it after I get done with it, if that makes any sense. So it's not going to, this video is not going to ruin anything as far as what it's going to look like, but I do want to show you the processes that I'm doing with it, and kind of give you a step-by-step of what I'm planning on doing with it. The customer, it's a mini truck, it's an older truck, so he wants to reveal it in that manner. So for some of you that don't know, that are a little bit younger, back when I was about in my teens, let's say, we didn't have the internet around a lot. Internet wasn't really as what it is today. It was very fresh. We didn't have things like YouTube. We didn't have things like Facebook or any type of social media. So when big projects were actually revealed, there was either in a magazine or it was at a show. There was no posting pictures online, posting updates about your project. Everything was pretty much secretive until you saw it at a show or you saw it in a magazine. So this is how this customer wants this thing revealed. So like I said, I'm going to still film everything, but I won't upload anything to YouTube until this thing is actually out in the public eye, because I don't want to spoil anything for him. That's just the way he wants to do it. He wants to go the old school way, which I don't blame him, because nowadays the internet pretty much ruins everything, I think, as far as, car builds, with whatever you're doing. Everybody posts everything on the internet, and it's just, it's just the way of the world now. But this thing is going to be more kept as a secret. But I want to give you a quick run around of the truck. It is the Mazda, and it is bagged. So I'm going to give you a quick run around of the truck. And I'm going to show you what I've already done and what I'm going to plan to do in the future. So the truck is already pretty much disassembled. I've torn everything off this thing myself. It came to me all together, besides obviously the hood. The hood's sitting over there in the corner. So I've already disassembled the whole truck. I can see everything, sunroof, back glass, everything is out of it. Even the door jamb, everything, the strikers, everything's out of it. Now, for some of you that don't understand why something like this needs to be torn down as far as this, it's because you're going to want your paint to actually be wrapped around every surface when you go to add paint or you add in clear. A lot of videos I see out, on YouTube, a lot of videos that are online nowadays, you know, you see cars with door handles still in them, belt molding still on them and taped off, or they're just spraying over it, you know, and sooner or later that is going to fail down the road, because you're giving it a sharp line for the paint to sit against. You're not actually wrapping the paint or the clear around the panel to each corner to where it actually sits right on that piece. If you wrap things up, if you tape things up, you give it a hard edge line. Let's say right here, this side window right here, if you would tape this up, it'd give it a hard edge line. You wouldn't be able to tape it off right to begin with. So with everything being out, allows everything to wrap in smoothly around the corners, allows the paint, you know, get behind the areas and actually prep it right and make sure the paint's going to last. That's why this is the difference between the boys and the girls, in my opinion. A lot of things nowadays, like I said, it's always on the internet. You see everything. So that's why we take everything apart. And the other reason why, especially on this build, we're putting graphics on this whole thing. All right, so the graphics are not only going to be on the outside, but they're going to be on the inside. So when you open up the door, you're going to see that wrap around on the inside. Eventually this door will be taken off, because I got to do the same on the inside in here too. Is when you open that door, you're going to see the graphics wrap around. It's going to go inside the door jambs, behind the bed, behind the cab, wrap all the way around the truck. So you need everything off to be able to do that. That's just how it is. You know, you can't really do it with the truck still together. It just makes your life a lot harder. And then, like I said, it's going to possibly fail down the road. It might last a few years, but it'll eventually fail. And at that point, you're redoing the whole job, because everything's peeling up. So, like I said, I've already got pretty much everything is Scotch-Brite. What I did first was I took glass cleaner, cleaned everything that needs to be cleaned. Because the reason why I do that is because I don't know where this truck's been. I don't know what type of chemicals, what type of waxes or anything this has been, you know, what's been applied to this truck previously before me. And this is obviously has been painted and restored once already years ago. And so whatever's on this surface needs cleaned before you actually take sandpaper or Scotch-Brite to it, because you're just going to be rubbing that stuff in if you don't clean it right. So I glass cleaned everything, lacquer thin cleaned everything, got the truck really, really clean, and that allows me to see what I'm doing better as well. So after that, I cleaned it, red Scotch-Brite, every single thing. As you can see, I didn't do this door on purpose yet, this door jamb. You can see how shiny versus dull. This is what you want it to look like versus this. You want a Scotch-Brite, every little nook and cranny you'll get inside of here, you know, all the edges and everything, you're gonna need to Scotch-Brite it fully. And after I get done with this, I'm gonna go straight to 600, and then I'm gonna buzz it the whole truck as flat as I can without burning through it. Now that's a tricky part, because I mean, obviously I got to go back and add the blue, because it's got primer on it already and things have been fixed on it. So I got to go back in and blend the blue into it. But you don't want to burn through it a lot, unless you are doing a full color change and you're sealing the whole thing. But on this one, I'm trying to match this factory paint on this truck. So I want to try to keep as much blue off of it as I can and not burn through like the edges and things like that. But obviously I don't know how much materials on this truck, so I'm going to find out when I start sanding on it. So that is the next thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to finish Scotch-Brite in this truck, get some 600 on my DA and buzz it down. But I'm going to give you a quick walk around. There are certain things on this truck I am fixing, like this had a little dent right there. The back of this is the reason why it took so long to get here, is this has been in a fabrication shop getting the tail lights put in. He went with the old school Cadillac taillights here, as you can see. I think it changes the truck completely. A lot of guys will actually put the lights on the roll pan on the bottom and French them in, but with this look, I think it looks, I mean, with the graphics and everything, when it gets slick painted and it's got clear and all that stuff on it, those taillights are going to stand out when they're on. So that looks really good. All the body work looks really good. It's got 4 coats of primer, epoxy primer on it. I got sand flat, and I might have to reprime some of this stuff. I won't know until I start blocking on it. But there's a couple spots that I noticed I wanted to show you. I think there's one right here You can see kind of where it bubbled up, and it's also got the same spot where right here on the door handle. I don't know exactly why this is doing this, but obviously the paint is bubbled up and cracking. So what I'll have to do is I'll probably take 320 to it and sand it completely flat, feather edge it, same way with this, feather edge it to where the paint is going to actually stick. Whatever I do is going to stick. So I'm going to 320 it, smooth it out, make sure it's feather edge, and then spot prime this stuff, as well as that dent over there, maybe the bedside. There is a couple rock chips I got to fix. There was a spot on this tailgate that was kind of, this is all shaved, so it was raising on me. I noticed it before I started sanding, so I sanded that flat. I'll probably spot prime that. It's got a dent right here. I'll have to fix this. I've already hammered and dollied this dent out, but I'll put a little bit of glaze here, get that in spot primer, and this one had a little bit of a dent right here. I don't know what it was from, but hammered and dollied that out. Got that in 320 right now, and I'll probably glaze that. As well as any of the rock chips. This is another reason why I kind of Scotch-Brite everything before just taking a DA to it and sanding it down, because as you can see right here, you can see this little scratch right here. This is actually rock chip, and Scotch-Brite will actually allow you to see all the rock chips that are in this thing. So all these little rock chips, I'll go ahead and fill them, and then I'll spot prime every single one of those. That way it's nice and smooth. Because when I go put blue paint back on this to blend this color out before I put the graphics on, I'll need this to be completely smooth so you don't see those, because you will see them if you don't fix them right away. So, but that's gonna be the goal today, is get this thing buzzed down with 600, finish Scotch-Brite in the door. So I'm gonna put you guys on the table here. I might put you on a time lapse, but let's get to it and get to sanding. It's gonna be a while, so. So the sandpaper I'm going to be using, I'm going to be using a DA for most of it. Some of it I'm going to use a block, like those areas that are peeling up. I'll probably block those down to make sure they're nice and flush. Get them feather edged with 320. I am using the 3M purple on this. I used to use that cheap Merca. It's alright, but you do waste a lot. So with spending the extra money on the 3M boxes, I mean, they're about 70 bucks a box depending on what grade you go to. The Merca's like half the price, but you're using more of the Merca sandpaper than you are the 3M in the end. So pretty much it pretty much balances itself out. So I mean, in my opinion, I would just use the 3M purple. It's the most expensive sandpaper that's out right now, but it does last longer and you can burn through things really quick. The compressor kicking on and the blow-off valve on it, shutting all the air out of it. So if you hear a real loud noise, that's what it is. with one sheet of paper, I was able to get a lot done. I mean, got almost the whole side done already. Obviously minus jams, and I'll get inside of here with this the 600 by hand, get all that nice and scuffed up. Because the better you know, the more time you spend on prepping, the better your paint's gonna stick to it, and just the longevity of your paint job is gonna last a lot longer than it is if you just skip out on some of these steps, you know. Like especially like right near, you see how shiny it is compared to where I sanded it. So I'll get in there by hand and I'll start scuffing some of that stuff, and you can see some things I wasn't able to see before I sanded it. Like right here, it's got like it's not, you can kind of feel it, so it's kind of like a rock chip, a very light rock chip. So that kind of stuff, you'll start seeing that kind of thing. Those things pop up when you start sanding on panels. Things that you weren't able to see with the naked eye will start popping up when you start sanding it, because all this dust will start getting in the cracks and the grooves everywhere, and it'll actually allow you to see what you're doing and what's on the panel, what's not there. Like right here, you see how it's got some texture in it still. I'll go back and re-sand that again. You want to try to get it as smooth as you can without actually burning through the clear coat, just because it's going to allow your paint to lay a lot better, as if you left a lot of orange peel in it. That's my advice. You can get away with it, but the slicker the panel is before you allow paint on it, the right way of prepping it will actually let if you're doing like a high metallic or a candy job, it'll lay that paint down so smooth compared to if you don't sand it all the way smooth and flat. That's just my opinion. It's what I've recognized over the years of painting. The slicker the panel is on your blend areas. I'll burn through this stuff real quick and get it all prepped out, and I'll show you what it's going to look like. I'm going to take some 320 red Scotch Brite. I'm going to try to dig out those areas where the paint's peeling up on it. And after I get done getting these areas where the paint's peeling up, get it all smooth, I'll take some 600 over, smooth them out. So I want to show you guys something real quick. This is exactly what happens when you don't prep your panels right. Your paint will start to peel very easily. It's because it's not prepped underneath. Something got underneath of it. You know, now it's lifting back up. And this right here is a nightmare, because I don't know, obviously it's feather edge around the corners, which is really good, but this whole area right here is probably gonna have to be stripped off and sanded flat because something underneath of it wasn't done right, so now it's just flaking off. I don't know how old this paint job was, or when it was done, or who did it, or anything like that, but this is a nightmare. I mean, obviously they've got sealer or primer underneath of it. It was either not, you know, it's still got the green underneath from the original truck. When you open up the door jambs, this truck used to be like a tealish color. You could tell, you know, so seeing green underneath of it, and it's still kind of shiny like that, you could tell it was not prepped right. So now all this is lifting back up. So just something you got to deal with. Getting into, I'm going to show you guys this real quick. So just because that little area right there, all this right here peeled right off. You know, just something simple, not getting scuffed in there. You can see where it's kind of scratched right here, but it's still shiny. So something underneath it here did not like it. and it started lifting the paint up on it. So you guys can see something so simple and so small turning to a nightmare like this. So I'll have to sand all this back down, this blue, get it all nice and feather edged. That way I can get it in primer. So I'm gonna take some 180 to this and get it all sanded. Hopefully it'll feather edge out, and we'll be on to the next one. Do the same thing like I did on the door handle with the bed. So put you guys back on. So I can definitely see why this failed. There's like a body line in between this that runs along this ridge right here, and it's pretty deep in there, and everything I peeled off of it, it was shiny underneath, so it wasn't prepped all the way, but it's all feather edged now, as you can see. It wasn't like bad paint or anything like that, it was just not prepped correctly, and it just peeled up this whole entire area. So that just goes to show you that the reason why you need to take everything off the car when you're painting stuff. Make sure you get all these shiny parts sanded down, even inside of here, because you know, if it was even worse than that, you'd be stripping this whole entire door, which would just be a total nightmare. So make sure you get all the little grooves, and this is why I kind of go through everything with a red Scotch-Brite pad, because it allows me a peace of mind that a Scotch-Brite's going to get in there better than a piece of sandpaper. Even though I had this sandpaper all curled up inside of there, you know, it was still tough to get in there, but with the Scotch-Brite pad, you're able to get in there a lot easier because it's a lot softer, and it can contour to these edges and these shapes on some of these cars. So just a heads up, make sure you prep everything correctly. That way your paint sticks and it lasts. This is all done now. I'm gonna move on to the bed. Get this is gonna get primered, obviously. So it's gonna get primered, you know, sand it back down and get ready for base coat and then the graphic. But we're gonna move on to this one. You know, this one, it's a little bit smaller, but it kind of scares me. You can So that, as you can see, I sanded that out. Even though I was not using a block, there's a lot of paint on this. So what I'll do is I'll block this down and I'll run it over with the DA with 320. This will also get primed before we add paint. But we're gonna get to, we're gonna move along to the door jambs, bedside, and then the rest of the truck and get it all sanded down and nice and smooth. And see you in a little bit. So we got the whole truck sanded. Everything's gone through with 600, and then where we feather edged the door handles and the other stuff that was cracking out, the paint wise from previous, we got those all feather edged, ready for primer. And as you can see, I went around and I noticed I cleaned everything back off, and I went around and re-scotch brighted and re-sanded all the chips, everything that needs filled with putty. I've already sanded that stuff with 180, so I'm going to clean this stuff back off, and we're going to put some putty on this stuff and get it all sanded smooth and get it all ready for primer. I'll just show you guys real quick what I'm talking about here. But little chips like this, let me see if we can see. But there's little chips like this, cracks, some dents I got to fix, little stuff like that. Nothing major, just little stuff from driving it. This truck was driven a lot. As you can tell, there's a lot of chips and rock chips and stuff in it. But just trying to get those filled. So what I'm going to do is clean these panels off. Every little panel's got a little bit of something in it, so it's going to be a lot of filling, but really, really small, so it shouldn't take too long. But we're going to get this knocked out and get it ready for primer here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and blow everything off, get all the dust off of it, and wipe everything down. And then I'm going to go back in and fill it with some putty. I want to show you guys real something. I just sanded this, had another crack just like over there in the door handle. You guys can see that right there, that spot. Watch this. I've already sanded it flat. It was ready for some little bit of glaze on this. It was kind of low when I sanded it and it started chipping, but you see how that's just coming right off with the air? That's not good, so we're going to have to feather edge this some more. You don't want to put anything right over top of this. You want to at least try to sand it, feather edge it. For some reason, something underneath this material is not happy and everything's lifting up. So before you put anything on top of it, make sure you get it feather edge. Feather edging just means it's kind of like this around the edge. You get it nice and smooth and get it to where you can actually stick something on top of it. So I've got my block 180. I'm just going to block this down as much as I can and try to get this smooth. This will create problems down the road. And you can see it's kind of taking that shape where it's feathering pretty nice. So hopefully it'll actually, everything else will stick on top of it. Nothing else will happen. And if you're doing this stuff, you know, and one tip about stuff like this, since this is a customer's project, and these things like this do happen when you're working on stuff, because like I said earlier in the video, I don't know who painted this, I don't know how long ago they painted this, I don't know who did the body work on it. So when things happen like this, it's easy to, you're better off just to document it, rather than just fix it without documenting it. Let the customer know, just the way down the road. It kind of saves your own butt, because like even though I'm feathering this down and I'm going to fix it right and re-primer it and sand it, all that other stuff, you know, 10 years down the road, it might happen again. And I'm just saying that because we're not stripping the entire vehicle with the old paint. Now, if this was happening all over the panel, I would have to strip the entire panel before I went any further. It's just better just to save yourself some time and hassle by documenting and letting the customer know, you know, what you're going through rather than just fixing it and not telling them. Being transparent is really, really good. You know, you want to be as transparent as possible, but you don't want to open up a can of worms either. Alright, so that's sanded out really, really nice. I'm going to blow it back off. I'm going to see if it's actually going to, you know, stop peeling. And then if it stopped peeling, we can go to the next step. Mix some putty up, some glaze. Glaze it real quick, sand it back down, and it'll be ready for some primer. So yeah, I just did the air test. This is what I call an air test. Get it really close to the panel, and those spots that was chipping, if it's no longer chipping, that means you sanded it correctly. Everything is feather edged back the way it needs to be. And technically, everything's fixed now, so. And it feels good, it feels nice and flat. Technically, I wouldn't have to really re-glaze this, but I'm going to because this is going to be a show truck, so I want to get it as straight as possible before I put primer on it. So now we're going to go over, we're going to mix some putty up, get everything prepped and ready, and I'll show you how to mix my putty. So this is just metal glaze. This is not used for any type of heavy body work. This is just pretty much to fill little nicks and crannies. Maybe you got some pinholes in your body work. This is not to shape edges or shape panels. It's, you know, you're not supposed to put a lot of this on here. That's why it's called glaze. It's really lightweight. It's not like the heavy body filler you guys see in the gallon cans where you can actually shape stuff with it. This stuff is very, very minimal use on this. So what I want to do is, I've already shooken it up. You always want to kind of shake it, get it all moving around in there because you don't know how long this stuff is sitting in the bottle. Make sure your panel, I got an aluminum panel here. Make sure it's nice and clean. And I'm just going to dab a little bit on here. It's not going to take much. So you're not putting a lot on there, but that's probably what I'm going to use for the entire truck. Like I said, we're just fixing little rock chips. There's very little dents that need fixed, and those dents are really, really tiny, so this will take care of it. This is the hardener. You know, the ratio is about a 50-1 ratio. You can use a scale if you really want to get crazy with it to make sure you get it right, but I'm just so used to using this stuff that, you know, I just kind of guesstimate it. Got to me a yellow spreader. Now the hardener, I mean, obviously the more hardener you put in this, the faster it's going to actually set up. Now with it being a little bit chilly out here, it's not going to set up as quickly as it is if it was actually summertime and it was like 90 degrees outside. Obviously the hotter it is, you don't want to put as much hardener in it as it is if it was going to be really, really chilly like it is today. So that's about the ratio you need, perfect sizing. We'll go over here and we'll get everything swiped up on this truck. Okay, put your eyes on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to knead this back and forth. You want it to be all uniform color. So with this brand of putty and the blue, it's going to turn like a light bluish teal color. And you want that color to be uniform throughout. You want to try to smear it, knead it, get all the pinholes out of it. Any air pockets that might develop, you want to get those all completely out. Obviously, you want your panel to be as clean as possible as well. It up, and then we'll get to sanding. I'm gonna walk you guys around and show you what I just did. So you can see where I've got it all mixed, spread in there. That was probably the dent that I popped out right there was in that cab corner. Everything else was really, really tiny. You're just filling it, like I said, I'm just filling those little rock chips that were on the truck from driving and things like that. Nothing major. As you can see, this is a really good picture right here of what I did. Just those little rock chips. Little dent right there, but nothing in the tailgate. Tailgate was actually fine. Same way with this fender. Just a few rock chips in it, nothing major. Most of the stuff will sand out in front, no problem. Same way on the driver's side. This actually had a crack in it, probably from driving it, things hitting it. So I actually sanded that crack out completely, put a little bit of glaze in there just to fill it, make sure it's all nice and smooth before we primer it. Same way right there, little chip. So this stuff's gonna take a little bit. I mean, it's about 50 degrees out right now. So I'm gonna move on to the bedside. I'm gonna start blocking this, and I'm gonna show you guys exactly how I block and how you should be blocking primer. So with primer, this is a pretty thick primer. It's got 4 coats of primer on here. I believe you said it was U-Pulp epoxy primer, so this stuff is really thick that's on here. So I'm going to be blocking this probably for a while. So I grabbed some 320. If you've got something in primer and you're expecting not to prime it again, 320 is where you want to start at. If you haven't seen my abrasives video explaining the methods and the process of which sandpaper to use where, go back and look at that video. But with this, I'm hoping not to reprime it. I might have to, but I'm hoping I don't have to. So I'm going to use some 320 on a block. And the way you want to block it is you want to go parallel to the body lines, all right? So you got your body lines, so you want to go parallel to those body lines. You don't want to really go in a straight manner. You want to kind of go at a diagonal. And you'll see me, I'll go one way for a certain amount of time, and then I'll switch it up and I'll go the next way. What that's going to do, it's going to X out your patterns. It's going to make sure this panel is nice and straight. So parallel, keep it flat. You don't want to really put pressure on it. You just want it to kind of glide across it, because what you're doing is, essentially what you're doing is you're sculpting, you're shaping this panel to be the straightest panel you can get it to. So you see I keep the block completely straight, parallel to that body line. And I'm not really staying on one spot. I'm going across the whole area because I'm trying to shape this to be really, really straight. So you don't want to stay in one area too long, because what you're going to do is create divots.
I wake up every minute with a fever dream. I push the mind to a limit where it needs to be. I work, I got believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss. See, I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python. Grab what I like real fast, choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact.
Cause I'm my own worst enemy, only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed, and everything I do the best. And deep within my mind, you know I'll always manifest it.
All right, so I got the primer all sanded. Everything's blocked down with 320. The next thing to do is 320 on a DA. and then what I'll do is do 400 after that on a DA. What I did after I blocked it with 320 was I took a red Scotch-Brite, went in every groove and crack I could get to, because there are some spots where sandpaper you can't get to, and Scotch-Brite you will be able to get to it. So Scotch-Brite to everything that I just blocked down with 320. Like I said, I'll throw some 320 on DA, buzz it down a little bit, get those sand scratches out of there, and go up to 400, do the same thing. But right now, we're gonna go over to our putty here, our glaze. We're gonna block this stuff down because it is dry right now, and that way we can get this thing in primer. Move over to the fender. So what I'm gonna do next is 320 on a DA, all those things I have blocked down. The reason why, some of the stuff I fixed in a 320, a lot of the bigger spots I fixed with 180 first and then went up to the 320 after that. The reason why is I can seal panels that have been hit with 320 on a DA. I can seal right over 320. I can't do that with 180. Even though this stuff is getting primer spotted and blended in, I still want to get it as fine as I can with the primer still sticking to it. So I always finish everything out in 320, 400 before I primer on a DA, just because I don't want those sand scratches coming back and bite me in the ass. So that's what I'm gonna do next, 320 on a DA, and everything else, it'll be ready for primer. everything is sanded down with 320 DA. Next up, I'll be blowing all this off, taping it up, getting ready for primer. I'll get 3 coats of primer. That's a high build primer. It'll fill these really fast, really well. Flatten everything out, and then I'll DA everything back down after I block the primered spots, and DA the primer that I've already sanded today down, and then get everything pre-prepped for paint, which means just going over everything for the 3rd time, 4th time, keep going over the truck, making sure every panel is ready for that sealer. And the worst thing to do is go back and forth once you're already moving forward. So that's the next video I'll be putting out. If not, it'll be looped in with this one. I'm trying to make one video as a whole during the whole prepping stages, and after that you guys won't see a video until the truck is finally done, revealed to the internet, to all the, you know, not the show that he's going to. He doesn't want everything on the internet, so it'll be all looped in one big video. So until then, see you guys next. All right, so we got the car or the truck cleaned up, ready for some surface primer. It's going to be the House of Color DTS 3000. I want to shoot some gray primer on here. It is going to be the high build. I want to show you around the truck, tell you guys what I did here real quick. So what I did was pretty easy. I went around to all the spots we're going to primer, and I cleaned everything with glass cleaner, wiped them down clean, and then I taped them off. One thing with primer is if you're doing spots, let's say this one right here, if you're doing spots, you don't want to make a hard edge when you're taping your primer line off, because what you're doing is that essentially is you're building up that primer, so it's going to be higher than the actual substrate of the truck. So when you go to block that, it's not going to block evenly. So what you want to do is kind of have a feather edge around your primer. You don't want hard lines, but you just want to kind of have a little bit of like a circle, so may say, around it, to where it's kind of just all even. No hard lines. That's why I've got this stuff back taped around here, so I don't have to sand in the edges or anything like that. Same way with down here. Even though I'm just priming this spot right here, I want the overspray to kind of hit around it, making a solid even coat after coat. So back tape it all, make sure everything's nice and clean. Same way with the other side of the truck and the fenders. I've got everything taped up, ready to go. I tape all these lines up. That way I don't have to get primer inside these cracks and sand it again. It just makes for, it's time. It saves you a lot of time, things like that. So same way with here, I'm gonna be doing spots out here. I'm not gonna really tape anything since the stuff's off the truck already. There are some spots on this side that we got a primer here. Same way with this side. Even though I'm primering both of these spots, I'm gonna try to keep the inside of the bed clean. No hard lines. Let the overspray kind of hit around it. Because once you start blocking this stuff, guys, if you create a hard edge around this stuff, you will end up with wavy bodywork, and you'll be redoing it all over again. So give yourself enough room, you know, tape off what you need to tape off. With this stuff, I don't have it all the way taped, or I don't have the whole truck plastic. I'm not going to be blasting primer on this. It's going to be really low air pressure. You know, it's really tiny spots. Like right here, it's all rock chips and everything. As you can see, it does have some bodywork down there. So it's just taped off for me to blow 3 coats of primer on it. Really low pressure. Like I said, I'm not blasting this stuff. I don't want overspray all over the truck, all over the shop. So low pressure, tape off what you need to tape off. Make sure everything's back taped. Make sure everything's clean, and you'll be ready. So let's get to mixing some paint. And like I said, we're going to be using the DTS 3000 gray from House of Color. So I'll set you guys up here, and I'll show you guys how I mix that. So this system, the 3000, if you're going to do a high build, you're just pretty much reducing it 4 to 1. So it can be 4 parts primer, the sealer primer, and then 1 part of their 3000 DTS hardener. DTS is just direct to surface. You can go over metal, go over bodywork, anything that's sanded through all the way. Put this on there. This is also used for sealer. You just reduce it when you get to that point. So what I got here is I got a cup, so I'm going to line up to the 1 here. Now next, I went a little over the line, so in my head, I need to go up and bump it up a little bit. Alright, about a little bit more. Should be good there. Now if you wanted to do, instead of like a really high build thick primer, you can go to like a medium build and add like 10% reducer to this to kind of let it even out a little bit more, thin it out a little bit. But with this, I'm going to put a high build on it since we are filling rock chips. The body work we did previously on filming the rock chips might not be as flat or even as they look or feel. So you want to kind of put a little bit of high build on this, that way it gives you enough room to sand it down, block it smooth. Got that? So the gun I'm using is going to be the 3M AccuSpray. I've said this and mentioned it before in the other videos. It's got a 1.8 tip on it. I believe that's what this is. It's like a 1.8, 1.6, but it'll spray this stuff really, really well. Even being a high build, it'll spray it really, really well. And this is the gun that I use nothing but for primer. Give it a good shake. And we're ready to go over here and start shooting these panels. See, what I'll do is I'll start over here. It'll be really low pressure. So with this is I've already got a regulator on this, so like I usually go by sound. You know, we want to kind of turn it down because we're not blasting this, we're just kind of spot priming it, and we're trying to control the overspray on this. So we're going to get going. We're going to do the spot down here first, and we'll walk our way around the truck. Let me get you guys in there a little better, and we'll just kind of like work our way around the truck. First coat I always do pretty light, because I want to get kind of a tack coat on there, make sure everything's going to stick after that, make sure the panel or the primer is not going to do anything weird on me. So I'll do a really, really light spray on it the first time, almost to where you see through it. And we'll just kind of work our way around the truck. And I can already notice something right here. I need to take this off right here so overspray don't get in the truck. And what I'm gonna, it's pretty simple. I'm just gonna go in here and I'm just gonna easily back tape it. Alright, it's nice and sealed off there. I'm just going to be doing this area right here. I'll do that keyhole too, just this way you don't have to worry about it down the road with again, because I want to try to keep everything clean on the inside. So, and one thing with primer is you want to try to back tape everything, even if you're doing like a straight panel. When I want to try to, we want to get it kind of rolled in there, roll it back. And that's what I mean when I roll it or back tape it. Is I'll do a fine line. That way if I'm doing anything below this, primer won't get above it. So as you can tell, really light coats for the first coat. This one I kind of put on a little heavy, as I noticed from the other side. It is going on really good. Everything's nice and clean. It's not doing anything weird. So I put a little bit heavier here just because there is body work here. It's not like we just sanded or filled something really tiny. It actually had body work in these areas. So I put a little bit of extra heavy. And we're going to move on to these panels over here. Just going around and spot priming it all. First coat is on. We'll wait about 6 or so minutes. Let this stuff flash off. Put a second coat on. And then after that, we'll wait another 6 or so minutes. Put the third coat on. And then we're going to let it sit. We're going to let it sit probably for a good 2 days before you come back here and block it down. That way everything's nice and tight. It's all shrunk up. And it's ready. It's nice and dry. So that's what you want. You want it to kind of wait in between layers. If you go wet on wet, you're really not building up that primer. You're just kind of stacking on top of each other, and it makes them one big layer. So what you want to do is let it flash off and let it go flat, and then you're ready for the next coat.